This is Challenger Approaching, where we take a character who isn't playable in Smash Bros. Yet and theorycraft a full newcomer design as if they did get in. With us stuck in these doldrums between Smash games, we're left to speculate on what the next entry might do differently. How will its new additions to the roster, especially its third-party guest fighters, vary from those chosen for Ultimate or the games before it? Well, our challenger this time might be a way to do that. She may be newer than most icons in the medium, but her game of origin has stayed in the zeitgeist even years after its release. And with multiple crossovers on her resume, a passionate support base, and moveset potential for days, could she join the fight next when the time comes? Let's find out. To be! Yorha number 2 Type B is a robotic warrior from a very distant future who, okay, her story is complicated, so let's focus on the basics. 2B hails from a version of Earth that was forever changed when a race of aliens invaded, deploying an army of machine life forms to wipe out humanity. To face this growing threat, the human resistance built combat androids in their image and likeness to fight on their behalf. That was thousands of years ago. The remnants of humanity have taken refuge on the moon, the aliens have disappeared, and both sides' creations have continued their unending war. 2B is part of the latest line of battle-type androids, as part of Yorha, an organization who continues to fight to reclaim the planet. Deployed to the surface alongside the scanner android 9S, 2B takes on a mission to destroy the machine's newest superweapon before it can activate. The story gets much more complex from there, as there is more to the androids, the machines, and the nature of their conflict than it seems. Upon its release in 2017, NieR Automata was a breakout hit. Not often that you see a new entry in a previously very niche series sell 1 million copies in its first month, or reach 10 million as of this year, enough to completely overshadow the rest of the NieR games. And it's been impactful in more than just its gameplay. Beyond the stylish action combat featuring suggestively dressed robots, there's a legitimately compelling story filled with emotional moments that goes in some shocking directions, all with a central theme of existentialism, asking the question of how to find meaning in a world that lost all previous purpose eons ago. And to prove how well Automata and 2B have stuck around in the years since, just look at the sheer number of crossovers she's already appeared in, including 2 fighting games. So, could Smash be next? Well, the available range for guest fighters has widened a lot since Ultimate came and went. Characters people thought were less doable have happened multiple times over. On the other hand, she has a lot of competition. Even just within Square Enix, there are several characters worth keeping an eye on that she'd have to win out over. But, considering everything we've just discussed, and also the recent teaser that might or might not be hinting at a sequel, there might well be a chance. So, what if that future came to pass? How could 2B fight in Smash? Let's start with the basics of 2B's design. This is a character with a lot of contrasts. Though she wears an elegant outfit in battle, her personality is all business, or so it seems. At a glance, she's stoic, cool-headed, focused on the mission, and carries out her superior's orders without question. But as her game goes on, signs of something more creep through. Something kind-hearted and empathetic that she buries deep in order to avoid getting hurt. One of many ways this android is more human-like than one would expect. As for her actual visuals, you might have noticed her design in the artwork here looks slightly different than her official renders. Well, you know how Smash has adjusted certain characters before to fit Smash's setting better or adhere to certain ratings, particularly Sero in Japan? Well, I wanted this concept to feel as authentic to Smash as possible, including accounting for that. This challenger's key art is an attempt to nail down what changes might happen if she got in for real. And hey, she still looks cool. Especially her weapons. 2B fights with 2 swords of different sizes, the shorter Virtuous Contract and the larger Virtuous Treaty. When not in use, they levitate behind her back using highly advanced magnets. She also has her pod companion here to provide support. We'll see exactly how later. As for alternate costumes, 2B's first alt is an obvious one. This color swap was first designed for Soul Calibur 6, then became a separate entity in later crossovers called 2P. You can get a costume based on her in the switchboard of Automata, which means this alt has a roundabout Nintendo connection. For most of the other alts, I decided to alternate hair colors and use a range of outfit colors inspired by areas in Automata: the forest, desert, flooded coastline, and amusement park. You could say they're meant to represent what 2B is still fighting for. Then we have a 7th alt that borrows the rusty colors of the machines themselves. And finally, a striking red and black inspired by someone I can't elaborate on for spoiler reasons. Moving on to more details, how exactly would this challenger fight? Turns out, aggressively and with a whole bunch of ways to do so. As a rushdown fighter, 2B wants to approach her opponents, pressure their defenses, and open them up to attacks and combos. When played right, her combat would look as stylish as it does in her games. Attack too wildly though, and you'll look like an idiot swinging at nothing. Her offense truly clicks when you use your brain alongside your sword arm, especially considering the wildcard elements she has to back up that offense with. Depending on the situation, she can also harass foes from a distance, set up traps, or make her combos deal even more damage, all depending on something I can't reveal just yet. 2B's detailed stats show that, just like in her game, she can be pretty damn fast. Her running and mid-air speeds here strike a balance between her default run and extended sprint speeds in Automata. Translation? On the ground, she'd be in the top 30 of Ultimate's almost 90 characters, and in mid-air, she'd be around the mid-30s. Also, mirroring her long dash animation in Automata, 2B's initial dash in Smash would be tied for the longest in the game. Like most Smash fighters, that initial dash is a little faster than when she runs, meaning she gets that extra speed for extra long to get the jump on opponents easier. But she can't put her shield up until after the dash ends, so careful. Which is one of multiple things keeping her in check. While 2B can tear enemies apart on offense, her defense isn't the greatest. Lose your momentum and get stuck on your back foot when playing as her, and you can be in trouble, especially with her below average weight. And while her mobility is very good, her attacks have inconsistent speed. A lot of them have extra lag at the end that leaves her vulnerable afterward, and some are slow to come out too. Play in a way that limits those weak points though, and you'll have a frenetic fighter with flexible combos who can rack up damage and execute her foes without much trouble. Question is, are you up to the task? Now, let's see that moveset in action. 2B's core attacks start off with a jab combo that doesn't use her swords at all. She can fight unarmed in a pinch, and here she uses the first 3 parts of her game's barehanded light combo. Does solid damage overall, and the 3rd hit covers a huge area for a jab finisher. 2B's forward tilt uses her smaller sword. Starts with a diagonally downward slash while advancing forward slightly, but if you press A again, she does the 2nd part. This optional extension is great for keeping opponents guessing so they can't get too comfortable against your offense. 2B raises her small sword above her head for her up tilt, twirling it in a way that mimics the spinning moves in her game, but while still holding the sword in this case. A multi-hit attack that catches people jumping nearby. It even combos into stuff at low to mid percents. So, you know that footage you just saw? 2B's down tilt actually does that, sliding her sword a couple feet along the ground where it whirls in place for a ranged multi-hit completely separate from her. It even starts combos itself, but it also leaves you wide open to anyone nearby that it doesn't hit. And 2B's dash attack is a highly dexterous move where she leaps forward with a spinning slash, slides along the ground on her knees while spinning twice more, then finishes with a low horizontal slash. Goes a long distance, deals 4 total hits, and ducks so low it can go under a lot of high attacks. If you thought that looked cool, then check out 2B's smash attacks. Her forward smash has her suddenly grab both swords and swing them rapidly while advancing forward about 1/4 of a stage length. This 4-hit frenzy deals a lot of damage, carries foes with it, and even has decent speed. It's also very committal with a ton of end lag that'll get you punished hard if it's avoided or blocked. 2B's up smash is a simpler move where she just swings her larger sword overhead from back to front, letting its sheer weight slam into the ground at the end. Nothing fancy here, just a simple big disjointed swing with slow speed, but a lot of power and range. And for her down smash, 2B draws her large sword back and infuses it with energy based on how long you charge, then performs a 720-degree spinning slash. Deals one single hit to anyone it connects on, with power to spare and a long duration. But again, you're a sitting duck at the end, so save it for when it'll land. 2B has a set of moves for air combat in her game, but we're actually starting with an adapted ground move for her neutral air, a heavy double kick that looks like something you'd find on a brawler, not a sword fighter. Similar to Captain Falcon's Nair, it's too slow to break out of pressure with, but it is a good combo ender with enough knockback to edgeguard with. Now for the stuff actually based on her mid-air moves. 2B's forward air is another quick diagonal slash, this time without a second part. Has low enough end lag to easily combo into itself and other moves for a good percent range. This thing's a staple of her kit because of that. Her back air, on the other hand, is more situational. 2B turns around and swings her large sword in a huge downward arc. This thing's as slow as it looks, tied with Shulk for slowest back air in the game. But its high damage and enormous hitbox make it scary off stage nonetheless. 2B's up air is a quick slash with her small sword in a rising arc. Doesn't swing as far as in the footage here, and doesn't have that upward movement, but still covers above her well. Not the strongest move, but it racks up damage, combos through mid percents, and keeps foes from landing. And finally, her down air has 2B grab her large sword and perform an overhead swing that drops her straight down. This stall and fall move deals a huge hit with wide range, can spike on the first few frames you start falling, and even has an extra hitbox as you land. It's also as slow and laggy as it looks, so careful. That's a lot of 2B's repertoire down, but how about her grab game? Her grab animations use both hands to clinch down on opponents, which she can do because her swords float behind her back and don't need to be held. Grapples onto her target with just one hand afterward though, and her pummel just knees her foe square in the gut, emphasizing the sheer strength she's capable of. 2B's throws are an interesting bunch. Her forward throw is a flip that tosses the opponent away in the process, sorta like how she throws her sword in the animation here. Good for sending people off stage. Back throw has 2B grab her small sword with her free hand, flip it around, then perform a forceful stab kinda like the one in the animation here, without the movement. This one has enough knockback to KO eventually at the ledge. For her up throw, 2B quickly whips out her small sword, scoops her opponent above her head with it, and directs the sword into a hands-free multi-hit spin maneuver like her down tilt. This throw deals double-digit damage. And 2B's down throw just forcefully bounces her opponent off the ground, similar to several down throws we've already seen, and just like most of them, it's a combo starter that sets up into her forward and up airs easily. Can get legit damage off this thing at low percents. 2B may be focused on the mission normally, but we can still work some taunts in. Her up taunt is the obvious one, placing her arm over her chest and declaring,
"Glory to mankind."
Her side taunt does one of two animations where she spins one of her swords around, then returns it to behind her back. Which sword she uses for it depends on which one she attacked with last. And her down taunt calls her pod down to her in order to pet it? Hey, even robots can appreciate a little affection every now and then. All of these moves so far, and we've overlooked something obvious. 2B's pod companion helps out with most of her specials, especially her neutral special, because it's actually multiple in one. In Automata, your pod provides customizable support fire in combat. This is the key to the dynamic elements in 2B's playstyle. Press B, and she calls on her pod to perform one of 4 different attacks. Laser fires, well, a big laser made of off-white colored energy. Goes straight forward a long distance very quickly and deals moderate damage. Hammer forms energy into a giant mallet and pounds it down about 1/4 of its stage length ahead. Deals a very strong hit with a lot of shield damage, but it's extremely slow and telegraphed, a delay that can actually help sometimes. It also has a blind spot right in front of 2B. Spears summons a line of digital spears about half a stage length in front of and behind your position, landing on the ground or platforms at the highest elevation available. Each spear deals minor damage for the second and a half they're active, with low vertical knockback. That is easy to combo into your other moves. Lastly, Blade has the pod generate an energy blade and rapidly spin around 2B. For the next 8 seconds, she has an additional active hitbox rotating around her while she's free to do whatever non-pod moves she wants, letting her inflict damage on enemies and extend combos by merely being nearby. How do you choose which pod program you want? Well, the first time you activate this move each stock, 4 icons appear above 2B in cardinal directions. Pick a direction and let go of B, and you equip that program for the rest of the stock. But there's more to it. All specials that use the pod draw from a unique meter. The skill gauge works a little differently than an automata itself. Starts out at 100%, but each pod-based special expends 50% of it, replenishing over time. If you're at less than half meter, instead of performing those specials, your pod uses its backup fire instead as long as you hold B. This has solid range, deals minimal damage with 0 knockback or stun, and using it makes the gauge slowly go down instead of refilling. 2B's neutral special is 4, technically 5, moves in 1. A long-ranged answer to enemies who refuse to fight, a scary delayed pressure tool, a stage trap with a wide area of effect, or a combo maniac's best friend. Select your preferred one at the start of each stock, like you'd adjust your loadout at the start of a boss fight. Just mind your skill gauge. That's a lot of moves in one slot. 2B's other specials aren't as crazy, but we're not done with pod stuff yet. On use, 2B summons a different pod? This is a backup you can find in her game. The second pod launches a wire made of pure energy directly ahead, flying almost to full stage length. If the wire finds a fighter, stage structure, or the like to latch onto, it damages and briefly stuns its target, then quickly retracts and pulls 2B right to its location. If it hits an opponent, you can capitalize on that brief stun to deal an extra hit or get a combo going. Not only that, if you aim the wire at a ledge, you can tether to it from a long distance away, making 2B's recovery much better than it seems, as long as you have enough skill gauge. A090 Wire is an approach/traversal tool that lets you zip right up to someone if they leave themselves open. You can snare an enemy who thought they were out of range, catch up to someone deep off stage for a surprise edgeguard, or even recover with it yourself. It can be risky to use though, and not just because of the meter cost. 2B is vulnerable while the wire pulls her forward, and it still activates on enemy shields without stunning them, dragging you right up to them while they're free to clobber you. Next up, 2B's main recovery move. This one is her only special to not use a pod. Activate it, and 2B grabs her large sword and spins with so much force that it propels her into the air. The rising spiral goes a decent distance for this type of move, dealing up to 3 hits to anyone nearby for moderately high damage with knockback at the end that eventually takes stocks. The speed of this thing is kinda iffy, like every large sword move, but it has great horizontal range and surprisingly low end lag that does not put you into free fall afterward, which means you can follow it up with a couple faster aerials at lower percents if you still have your double jump, and if you're on the ground when you use it, it comes out slightly faster. Virtuous Spiral is a simple-ish recovery move that gets 2B extra vertical distance when she needs it, but it truly shines on offense as a low percent combo move, a backup finisher on heavily damaged foes, and even something to use after successfully shielding a laggier enemy attack. Worth mentioning that the surprisingly low end lag part includes being able to grab ledges quickly afterward, but the slashes don't reach very far above 2B, and her head is completely vulnerable, so don't get spiked. Pretty wide range of stuff here. What's something we're missing? How about something defensive? One more pod attack for the road. On use, 2B summons a third pod, another one you can rescue in her game, which quickly scans for targets in a circular area around her, smaller than the one shown here. If it detects anyone, 2B launches into a flurry of sword slashes faster than the eye can see. The Mirage moves slightly in the direction of the first fighter the pod detects, but you're stuck in place after that. And proximity is the name of the game here, because the closer to the center anyone is, the more damage they take. And unlike most counter specials, you don't have to get hit by something to activate it. If you are struck by a direct attack, it activates early, but all you need is to have someone be present nearby when the scan happens, which admittedly is a stricter window than most other counters. R020 Mirage is a surprise defensive move for when you think an opponent might try to turn the tables on you. Also good for pressuring landings, catching rolls, tech chasing, the works. But be warned, it does not stun opponents at the start unless their attack sets it off. Someone who sees it coming can bait it out, shield or back out of the area of effect, and hit you during the lengthy end lag afterward. Alright, one move left to cover. For 2B's final smash, we're calling in the heavy artillery. For missions that require an aerial approach or extra firepower, Yorha androids pilot flying mechs armed to the teeth. Channeling the Smashball's power, 2B calls in her personal flight unit to the battleground behind her and hops in. She flies it to a position directly above center stage and hovers in place as a targeting reticle appears to aim with. After a moment to prep the weapons, 2B opens fire with a blindingly fast volley of energy shots powered by her pod and amplified by the flight unit. After a few seconds of this, the reticle grows larger and the flight unit unleashes a storm of missiles that fly outward and converge on the targeted location all at once. But what if I told you that's not everything? Because 2B has a secret alternate final smash. If you hold both L and R, or any two shield buttons, before pressing B, she activates her body's emergency self-destruct sequence. After a 2-second countdown, she unleashes an enormous explosion centered on her position. Surprisingly, the blast does not instantly KO her, but it does inflict her with 150% damage, leaves her in a crumpled state on the ground, and once she gets up, she can't attack for 10 seconds while her system reboots. A last-ditch desperation move to stave off defeat and win the day. This is how 2B could fight as a newcomer in Smash, an android from a very distant future perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Amidst the tragedy of her world, can she obtain the answers she so struggles to find? Well, maybe life really is all about that struggle, isn't it? A low-stakes competition like Smash every now and then can't hurt either. 2B sports a highly variable offense, with attacks that are all some combination of fast, strong, or usefully unconventional. She can combo attacks together with ease, doing so with extra flexibility compared to many other fighters. And her pod's available programs give her even more options than aggressive fighters normally have. However, those extra options have a high cost via the skill gauge that sets her back if they don't connect. Much of her individual moves have subpar damage output and/or notable end lag. She needs her combos to work to keep her pressure up, and most of her go-to kill moves are either difficult to hit or aren't strong enough to take stocks until late. This one's been a long time coming. 2B first appeared in the polls for these videos over 2 years ago. Those of you who waited this long, how'd you like the finished concept? The pod programs in the specials went through multiple iterations. I considered Wave for the down special, or one of the neutral options, but it felt too simple. Also considered Missile for the side special, and even thought of putting Spear there. Eventually, I asked myself, which one would be the most fun to use? And Wire it was. And a very early version had you pick your neutral special on the character select screen, but multiple 2B players could have kept swapping between specials to counter each other and never started the actual match, so it wasn't feasible. I also considered letting 2B use her pod to slow her descent in the air, or even use the secret fling maneuver for her up special, but I decided the former was one gimmick too many, and the up special was better off being something combo friendly. Funny how one's perception of a character can change over time. If you'd asked me how I felt about 2B going into Ultimate, I'd have thought she was too much of a flash in the pan to get in. But nowadays, she's had enough staying power that I think she is worth keeping an eye on. Not sure about her chances for Smash 6's base game, but once DLC inevitably gets going, who knows, right? Thanks to the following for lending a hand with this video. Thanks to my channel supporters in particular, through Patreon and YouTube memberships. And now, those of you who are supporters, for as little as $1 per month, you can vote on which of these characters gets to go next. Hey, she got into Street Fighter, so it ain't that out there. So, until next time, a future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself.